Okay, today's video we're talking about what I call the Don't Rip Me Off Bro offer, PPC offer that you could run with PPC campaigns to get basic display advertising to work for your brand. Display advertising, if you don't know what that is already, it's basically everything else besides search engine advertising, where you're on Google or on Bing. If you run ads anywhere else on the internet, it's called display advertising. This is a guaranteed way, as long as you fit into the almost category, which I'm going to go through, for you to make a ton of money in your market, as long as you're willing to do it. There's a few people who are stuck up, who won't be willing to do it, which is your advantage to make a whole pile of money for yourself, simply taking the cookie cutter strategy that I'm giving you here on this video, step by step on how to do, to literally make millions of dollars for your business once it's all been set up. And I've cut out all the crap, stuff that you don't need to know, and go right to the source of what starts making money. So we're going to cut the crap, go right to what is going to be able to make money for your business and works basically 90% of the time for any other business, i.e. our clients that we use here at our dedicated PPC agency to make money when search engine advertising is either tapped out or doesn't work for that market. And while it takes a few extra steps to get to work than your typical search engine advertising campaign, has the potential to make not only more in terms of a lot more volume in terms of number of leads and number of sales you can produce with this method, but also lower cost per lead and lower cost per sale as well. So depending on what your problem is, this can fix this. Respectively, this is primarily a methodology for service companies. I'll tell you also right off the bat before we get into this and explain exactly what you need to do to make money. Turnkey way to make money with this starting today. This absolutely works for product companies too, and I'm going to give you examples of that. Like I said, it doesn't work for every single company out there, but chances are it's going to work for your company, and I'm going to explain first, right off the bat, what companies it works for, so you don't waste any time having to watch the rest of the video for a non-working strategy that you can't start making money with today. So anyway, the Don't Rip Me Off Bro PPC method that I've invented here and use on a regular basis. I've used dozen plus times already to make good money in several different markets, or many different markets out there. This primarily, if you're wondering if this will work for you now, like I said, I'd cover first, will work for any business where consumers, clients, or potential clients, potential customers do any kind of serious research before they buy. Obviously, if you're buying a $20 broom, you're not going to do research on brooms. You just buy what looks good. Time is money, even to somebody who's broke. Time is still money to some degree. And conversely, the more money that you're charging, the more research time they put in, the longer, as they call the sales cycle window is, for the time they initially start doing research to the time they buy, which means with this method, we're going to get in front of the person that's doing research for this to actually work. The more expensive it is, the more research they'll do, meaning the more advertising opportunities we have for somebody, because we're offering them a piece of information, which is when we get into it, you'll see how that's the meat of this. But also the length of time in which we can advertise to them is longer, so we'll have more the more expensive our product or services, the more enticing the information will be, therefore it'll also work better. The math works better, and the longer of time in which we have to get in front of the person, which means more actual ad impression opportunities, i.e. times in which they're on a website which advertising's offered on. Through Google Display Network, you can get on pretty much any websites that have advertising on there. Not all, but pretty much. And of course on Facebook, the more times that they'll be on Facebook during the time in which they normally do research before buying, if they're going to be buying from your market, and you could pick up on, of course, them going to likely be a future customer by what they're initially searching for today. And you don't have to know exactly when they start. Google and Facebook is going to tell you when that person's doing research, so you can actually start advertising to them. And so the actual method to get in front of that person is very, very easy. So anyway, they do research. It works the best, like really works the best, if you're over a $3,000 cost per sale of what you sell, or the lifetime value of a customer is over $3,000. I know half of you guys out there say, I want to make enough money on the first sale to pay for my advertising so I can finance the second sale, so I could go into advertising with $100 and I don't have to do anything. If you're at a competitive market, your competitors know the value of a customer, not just from the initial sale, but all the sales. And if you're not willing to pay what they're worth overall, there's people in your market who will, and they're just going to eat up all those customers. They'll take them, whereas their standards are not going to be ridiculous, in other words, whereas yours might. So and if you don't, obviously, surprises me how many of you guys don't do this, but go into your accounting software, figure out how much a customer is typically worth on average. Come up with an average. If they're worth over $1,000, this method will generally work. It'll work really well if you're over $3,000, either lifetime value or, obviously if they buy just once, what are they worth on that sale? Okay. I mentioned, so this method will get you customers on Google Display Network, which, Google, through your Google Ads account, running display advertising there, also on Facebook. It actually could work in other places, but these are the two main, 80% of, let's just say, what you can get out of it. So I'll just cover that. On Google, when you run these ads I'm going to show you how to run, you'll get on the leads that it'll generate, because even if you're selling a product, you're generating a lead. And because it's expensive, they generally, by the way, have to talk to somebody before they're confident to buy. And so you can talk to them and then close the sale on the phone with them. Or obviously you can do, a lot of times you can close a sale through email, but you get my point. If it's a $20 broom, they're just going to buy. They don't need to talk to somebody. Therefore, this method won't work. Once you usually get into anything, by the way, over about a $300, well, $200 to $300 average cost per, the cost per the price of your product or service, they generally need to talk to somebody to buy, or enough times to where if you don't talk to them, you're going to get half as many sales. And when your competition's talking to them and they get the full amount, and they're having to, they could pay twice as much to get a customer as you. And when you have multiple people doing that, they're going to push you out of the available ad space in your market, or the advertising in front of people in which they're in market for what you buy, and then you're not going to be able to afford or be able to compete with them anymore. So I say 1,000 plus because it costs so much just to get the lead, and you're going to need so many leads to close, of which you usually need about 10 leads to close a sale. If you actually had anything over $200 to $300, this technically could work, depending on how much. If you put the extra time and give it a little bit more time, even $200 to $300 product cost, well, this campaign strategy will work as well. So what we're doing is we're generating leads for people in the research mode for what we buy, and we can find out who they are just by using Google and Facebook's data, which is why they're taking over all the advertising out there because they have data on every one of their users, what they're doing at the time, what they're looking at, what they're interested in, and monitoring the patterns of a person that is a customer in your market, all the things that the average customer did before they bought, as per there are other people who are in your market already advertising on Google and on Facebook, looking at their conversion tags. And so when you start, you already got 95% of the hard work cut out. It knows who's usually buying from your competitors. Now you're going to jump in with a more efficient mousetrap. Anyway, if you generate 10 leads, you usually can get a sale. Your advertising that I'm going to show you what you use here, will convert at about 0.2 to 0.5% on Google Display Network. On Facebook, you'll go about 1 to 3%. And on Google, you at least get a 15 to 1 ROI. That means $15 in revenue for every $1 ad spend, as long as you fit the general criteria that I gave you there. You'll pay about 20 cents a click on Google Display Network. Why is it so low? Because you have such a good offer here, and nobody else is doing this, and this is exactly what your consumer wants. You get super high click-through rates, approaching 1%, which draws your cost per click down, which makes this so profitable and makes it work so well. Facebook, you'll pay closer to 50 cents per click. Why? Because the traffic there is just more expensive, but same thing, high click-through rates, low cost per click, goes into making that 15 to 1 return that you'll pretty much get on Facebook and Google either way. It just comes, Facebook costs more, but it also converts at a higher rate, okay? And these are just general baselines based upon what I've gotten in the last several campaigns where I've ran this exact strategy. It's my go-to strategy. If I'm going to run display advertising, this is my first one I'm going to basically think of, as long as I fit into the general criteria that I gave you here, where we're selling a fairly expensive product or service, which people are open to or willing to talk to us before they buy. And therefore, also do research, and we're going to help them out, make the purchase. Once you help somebody out, there's a reciprocal effect that goes on. When you help somebody, they're more likely to help you. And the more you help them, the more likely they are to help you. So your goal is to help them so much, they absolutely feel obligated to buy from you. With this method, you can do it. So for most of you guys, though, who take up my advice on how to do and run actual search engine advertising and shopping advertising on Google ads and Bing ads, you are already going to want to scale your results at some point. You know, you're taking my advice, implying that, I mean, I'm not joking around here. If you look at my other videos that tell you how to do a good search engine advertising campaign, you're going to make money. Because it's stuff that 99% of people aren't doing. You do it, you're going to have a more efficient mousetrap. You're going to make it work. But the thing with the search engine advertising is, yes, it gets to where it works the quickest. It's the most easy to do. Your skill level needs to be the least. And clearly, so it's just a very methodical, quick, easy way to make money in 90% of markets out there, but it's only going to take you so far. At some point, you're going to reach the roof on the number of ad impressions. Impressions is, you know, basically, if you see an ad, it shows up, that's an ad impression. But the number of times in which your ad can show up in your market for people that are eligible or likely to buy in your market. Why? Because the higher you tell Google or Facebook that you want to spend to get a click, or just in general, the more times your ad will be able to show up, because you're bidding for the ad space in front of people that are evaluating a purchase in your market or searching for one, and whoever bids the most, to some degree, it's also graded on how well that you convert that user and how well you serve them, because Google and Facebook wants to promote the people who serves them the best. So people are more likely to click on ads in the future because they have a preconceived notion that, you know, ads don't necessarily, they can be very helpful. The more you pay, half of it is just how much you are willing to pay per click. The more you're willing to pay per click, the more total times your ad will be able to show up, because you'll beat the other people for the ad space that you and your competitors know are profitable. But at a certain point, you bid so much, you won't be able to afford to bid anymore, because the math doesn't work out. You're bidding so much now, even though you're still getting more sales, the cost per sale is too high, and you're not getting that 8-to-1 return that you're looking for, like $8 of revenue to $1 of ad spend, and you got to stop. So, or in general, you'll run out of available times in terms of increasing the number of times your ad can show up on Google, because you're in a small market. Let's say you're in crime scene cleanup, and you know, like where somebody commits suicide, there's a cleanup, there's companies that specialize in that. There's only so much pie in a local geographic market. And so, there's just so many people searching a month, and that's it. And so if all you do is the only thing you think is possible to do to make money online marketing wise is to do search engine advertising, you may only be able to get to a couple $1 million a year in sales, and that's it. You want to get to 20 million a year in sales and really be the King Kong of your market, you got to get into doing this display advertising. Realistically though, like I said, display advertising, because it's harder for people to do and replicate, and more daunting to even try, you get it to work, you have no competition. People will very rarely copy it because they can't see the ads. So you could be sitting pretty with an ad campaign that now beats the cost per conversion Google search engine advertising can do. So you have an edge on your competition. You're paying less per customer, which means you can offer more in the service or more in the product, and then you slowly are able to push, stomp on your competitors over time because you've got that, edge, if you will, efficiency edge. But on top of that, you're actually generating 10 times as many leads as your competition is. And so realistically, you're going to be able to build up the infrastructure of your companies to become so efficient and so good that your competition, when they do get a lead, now they're able to close less. Whereas before they were closing 1 out of 5. Now they can only close 1 out of 8 because you've built up your company and your offer so well based upon reinvesting your money in that they eventually just can't make their own little ads that they had on Google work at all anymore. That should be your goal, to just absolutely stomp your competition into the dust. How can we get the ads to work so well that we have money to make our product or service then so well that everybody naturally just wants to come to us because we got the best one? And sometimes though, you're running search engine advertising, by the way, in like 10% or less of the markets basically, clicks are simply not affordable to start with. You have too much corporate or $100 million plus a year revenue companies to compete against, skincare, so on and so forth, that the search engine advertising, it's not possible, even with strategies like I give you on this channel for building a search engine campaign, to even get to work and be profitable after all your expenses. So, like Casper mattress, bed in a box, like those foam mattresses where they can put the bed in a box and ship it to you. That was one market we could never get search engine advertising to go into. Skincare, like I said, is another one. Why? Because there's people who actually have the money to run at a loss just to make sure that they're there. And there's multiple companies like that. And so in smaller markets, people can't run at a loss to obviously just to make sure they're on Google for their keywords. Anything where an average revenue of the company is under 100 million, generally that won't happen. But once it's 100 million plus, those companies they usually have public funding. They don't give a crap, okay? So then if you're in one of those markets where you can't make search engine advertising to work, you have to think of other ways to make money. Otherwise, you're not going to do any online advertising. And with everything going online, obviously you're in a downward trend in terms of your competition's now getting the online customers, and which is a greater and greater share of the customers that overall in your market is coming in through online. You got to think about how else am I going to combat this, which is your key to it is display advertising. At the start of the video, that's Google Display Network advertising and Facebook ads, which is like 80% of what's out there to grab on the display ad side of doing PPC, like I said, and being able to figure out an effective approach that'll do it in your market. Search engine advertising is very straightforward. If I'm selling a bed in a box product, I'm looking for people that are typing in bed in a box for sale, bed in a box companies, whatever. You get my point. And then you're just there. We send a person to a product page that sells the product. We're done. Display advertising, very rarely will it work in terms of, we're not talking about remarketing where we're advertising to somebody who's been to the site already. For somebody who doesn't know who we are at all, and we're going to have a banner ad that shows up for a person, getting that to be profitable after all our product and service delivery expenses and the cost of the ads together, to get an ad and a landing page combination that just sends people directly to a product page to work. Okay? You got to be able to schmooze the person a little bit better. How can we? It needs to be a more gradual process. It's like going up in public to a girl or a guy and say, "Hey, will you marry me?" Like yes, but after some sort of process. Okay, so you can't just send people to the same landing page. When people try display advertising, that's what they try, and then they say it doesn't work. No, you just needed a different offer and approach. You want low barrier to entry. And so you can get people that are you got to give something that they really, really, really want. You can't, half approach this. Figure out what they want. They want extremely a lot, and then offer that in your ad, basically. That's how you get the display ad that in front of somebody who wasn't intending on clicking on your ads at all, may even hate ads, to want and click through the ad and then turn into a lead or a customer at a high enough, in general, lead in this case, at a high enough rate where the ads will pay for themselves after all your other expenses. The way that you do that, the key way that you do that, which I do, my first go-to way to do this, and as long as we can get the client to do it, I mentioned a lot of companies aren't willing to do this because they're afraid of what their competitors will do to them potentially, which that's a really stupid excuse. Here's how this strategy is done to get the display advertising to work. If you want the easiest go-to way to do this in your market for all the reasons or any of the reasons I gave you, to where you can't expand or your cost per conversion or cost per sale is too high now, is you create this don't rip me off offer, where we're going to offer a piece of content in the form of an ebook on a landing page, have an ad that points people to that page, turning them into a lead, and then turning that sale, flipping it into a sale. Flipping the lead into a sale. To do that, here's the simple go-to process that you can use, streamlined, so you can start making money with it as soon as you basically want. First step, create a really good document. Most people call it ebook. We can call it ebook. I usually call it ebook on the landing page, that covers what other unscrupulous vendors in your market in general do or are doing without naming names. This is the part where I say people don't want to do it because they're afraid. Respectively, people are twice as motivated in general to avoid losing money than they are to gain it. And when most content out there that helps you buy in a certain market is all about how to buy what you're buying, how to make a good purchase. But there's nobody out there, typically in almost every market out there still today, on how not to get ripped off, which people are twice as motivated about in general, right? But also the availability of content so little, that where if you can actually come up with an offer like how not to get ripped off buying a roof, they see that content, now that's really intriguing to them. They got to click on it just to see there's got to be some, I just got to make sure there isn't something there I don't know about. That's the idea behind this. So you create an ebook for that, which is about a 15-minute read. It's got to be detailed, but not so detailed that they're going to see it and be like, oh, screw that, I'm not reading it. Use some, not just text, because people a lot of times want to see visuals, and it helps if there's visuals on there, that if they see visuals, they can scan it first, see that it looks interesting, and then go back and start to commit to read it. So they need to sell it before reading it. Sell to them the idea of reading it before they read it. Even though the topic is enticing, you still often have to do that on a sales copy page or landing page with sales copy on it. And so what I found works the best is a checklist type format. So it could be how not to get ripped off purchasing a roof, and then it can be, here's the 7 things that other roofing vendors do where customers really get screwed over or something like that. And then first thing, and then like a checkbox next to it, they will quote you one price and it ends up being another price, whatever. Now, this could be, for local market, it could just be what other people in other markets do. So you don't have to be afraid if your competition does these things coming after you, because you're not naming any names. Even if you are in a small national niche with only 20, 30 people and you name things other people are doing, if you're too afraid to tell customers why your product is better than theirs, then how the hell are people going to know how to buy your product then? I've never understood this when people say no to it. It's like everybody should say the same thing and the customer should figure it out for themselves. They say it's a negative trait to say something bad about your competitors. It is if you're naming competitors, not if you're actually just telling people what to avoid. That's just helping people not get ripped off. Otherwise, they're going to get ripped off. What would you rather have? Have them ripped off, or having people out there mad that you're telling them stuff that they do, which they could just improve their service and it's not true anymore. Anyway, they see the checklist. It's easy. It's in simple to read format. And it's something when they go to other competitors to get a quote, they can simply see, one by one, if they have these things, you're actually helping them make a purchase. So it's a buyer's guide, but it's a buyer's guide in which they're more motivated just not to get ripped off than anything, to help them not get ripped off, and which there's no existing content really out there that does that in general or do a very good job at it. So you have the content. 2, you create a compelling landing page that's just very, very simple. It doesn't have to be a long style landing page, a short landing page that has the title of the ebook, a picture of the ebook, and then a contact form, which down below on the lower part of the landing page, if you want to have 2 or 3 testimonials, you can do that. That's not even required to have a working campaign, as I've found. But you'll have you have the form. On the form, you'll have a field for email and also phone. A lot of people don't put phone on their forms in general, just with their web advertising. If you don't have people put down their phone, if you have really, really good email copy, you can try to get people to buy that way. But the bigger problem is a lot of times emails go to spam. People get so many emails, they don't see certain emails. They don't go through in general. You're not going to get your full money's worth or pitches at these people unless you get their phone number. Okay, so there's a special way, and I know what you might be thinking. If I get their phone number, they don't answer. There's a specific way to get around this, as I found. You can just, like I said, turnkey way to be able to make money with this strategy, because I figured out the proper way to do this the right way. So your goal, though, is just to get them to fill out that form, to get the ebook content, and then don't email it to them. People hate when they have to go to their email. Just when they fill it out right away, bang. It's you have an online PDF, immediately directs there, and then they start reading, hiding it in the email to verify their email. It hurts you more than it helps you, which I won't go into further detail on that, but just take my word for it, basically. And but yeah, the title of the content should be like "How Not to Get Ripped Off Buying," a Chevrolet Blaze, and the more specific you get here, the better. So if you have multiple products, do it, but on that level. Or if you sell mailboxes in general, then do. Or like custom mailboxes like we did before in that market. How not to get ripped off buying custom mailboxes generally will work as well. But if you have a great variety of different products, try to make an ebook for every subtype or category of product that you have. If you have lots of different categories that have lots of they're totally different items than the other category, if you will. Such as if you buy, well, I won't get into detail on that. I think you pretty much get the idea, because obviously if you're going to see not how to get ripped off your construction company buying a roof, and this construction company does plumbing and foundation repairs, it's not going to be relevant enough how not to get ripped off by a construction company. That in itself is too untargeted for you to get these numbers, so it needs to be more specific than that. So anyway, you have that. You have your landing page 3. Set up a system to send leads to a dedicated call center or individual. People that I do PPC campaigns for all the time, they expect the PPC campaigns to work if they call and they can't talk to somebody right away, which, by the way, on your content, at the very end of your content, it should say, I wrote this content, John Smith, and you can call me, John Smith, right now at this phone number if you have any other questions about this content or anything else you need to know about how not to get ripped off or make a good decision about buying your roof. You'll generate some live calls that way. Okay, but here's the cool thing about how to get the full value from each lead here. And that's the key differentiator a lot of times between people who make money on PPC and those who do not, in terms of what they do with the lead, the sales process, and more specifically, can they get a hold of the person? The phone, if they just leave their phone number, your cost per lead will triple asking for the phone and email, by the way, versus email, but you still want it. Why? Because there's a tool out there, there's multiple tools out there to where you can have it, if somebody enters their phone number on the form, in a certain time interval, you can have a phone call go to somebody and says, Mary Jane had filled out the form on the landing page dedicated for how not to get ripped off buying a roof. Would you like to call Mary Jane? Press 1. You could press 1 and it directly calls her. And so you can have it delayed. So if the content usually takes 15 minutes to read, 15 minutes after after the time they filled out the form, this call goes to the sales rep. They press 1, they call, and then they just say, hey, I just know that you filled out this request our information. I'm the person who wrote that content. Can I help you with anything? I'd be more than happy just to provide you free information. You don't have to buy anything from me. I'm just here to help. Just do whatever you have to do to get that person to start talking. Because the more time that you're talking with them, the more rapport you'll build up, and the statistically higher rate in which that person is going to buy from you. So shoot your foot in the door, basically. But that gets you the highest rate in what the contact rate with the lead, obviously, because they're most likely to answer the phone in general when they have time to answer the phone, which is when they're doing research, versus 2 hours later and they're watching a movie with their kid. Okay, and the statistics all say the quicker you call back a form lead, the better anyway. Well, I don't understand what more people don't do. What I don't understand is why don't more people use a system like I mentioned where automatically it should be asking the sales rep or the call center that the call is going to dial that person that's on the form, so that you not just encourage people to call back within 15 minutes like you're supposed to get the full amount of sales from those leads, that it physically enforces the policy. Okay? So anyway, and if it goes to somebody and they don't answer, you're losing money. So you got to answer the phone every time. This can generate like 10, 20 leads a day. So realistically, and that's for a local market, you have it get sent to a call center. So basically, as the leads fly in, you always got someone to answer the phone. So either way you slice it, it's got to be a dedicated person who's ready to answer at any time, which is hard, or a call center. And if you have to hire a call center, obviously that's better. I'd say that's with somebody that's less trained. It's better than not answering the phone. Okay, that not answering the phone, they're going to lose the heat. The heat of that lead is going to go down. The lead's going to cool off. You're not going to get them if you wait 3 hours to call them back. Anyway, that's 3. And then 4 is the final thing. You just set up your Google and Facebook campaigns to be able to target the person in which they're starting to do research. And like I mentioned at the start of the video, Google and Facebook give you the opportunity to know when somebody is starting to do research and, very statistically likely to buy something that you're selling in your market already, so that you can immediately start marketing to that person. Anything that you want to get in front of them when they start to show signs to be a likely customer at some point in the near future, 30, 60, 90 days in the future. And that is through the similar to audience algorithm that Google has and Facebook has lookalikes. It's the same thing. You tell Google, as long as you have over 100 visits a day on Google, you can set up an audience for all visitors, which then after a period of 30, 60, 90 days, you have an audience in your audience menu when you set up a display campaign that says similar to all visitors, which it's trying to figure out what are the similarities of the 100,000 data points that Google has on all their users. What are the usual data points that users have that are similar to all the people that are on your site, to be able to profile future people that will be likely to come to your site, because they have all these other matching subtraits that make them unique to people who buy from your market and specifically also buy from you. So you set a similar to all users 30 days, similar to all users 60 days and 90 days, and then you run those separately. Sometimes actually going further with that, do similar to all users 180 and also 365 and 540. You'll ultimately find out which one of those work the best for you in terms of cost per lead. Some will work good, some won't. You just shut off the ones that don't work. And basically, you have an ad that just pitches the ebook, How Not to Get Ripped Off Buying a Roof. and you just put that in big bold letters on your banner ad that drives them to your landing page. So you don't make it any more complicated than this, because the content's good enough, sells itself. You just want people to notice it, and if it looks like a nice, professional ad, people won't notice it at near the same rate. So you just make it look even somewhat ugly. White background with black text. It could be even something like that. You can't do exactly, your ad will get disapproved, but very close to that. That style will work better than something that looks like your typical everyday ad, because it won't get noticed at the same rate. So you just send that person to your landing page with the ebook on it. They can only do one thing, which is to download the ebook. If they saw the ad, and they clicked through the ad because they saw the topic title on that ad, obviously you're going to get a good conversion rate when they get to the landing page anyway. So you don't have to do anything else really fancy on that landing page. Okay? On Facebook, you do lookalike audiences. Lookalike 1x, lookalike 2x, lookalike 3x, based upon the lookalikes of all visitors that come to your site. If you don't know how to do the lookalikes, there's plenty of articles out there like that, but you basically then are going to have a Facebook ad that does the same thing, sending people to that same landing page, and then you just wait for the leads to come in. Now, what kind of results can you expect from all this? Basically, the last 3 markets in which I've done this, which I've done it a hell of a lot more than 3 different markets. I'm telling you the actual cost per lead we got with this within the first 3 months of running these campaigns. So a lot of times display advertising takes a long time to get working. You need a long runway, because 10% of what you do actually works, and you got to see what 90% of the age demographics and the gender and the states that don't work, and you got to shut all those off, and now you have something that works. Because this content's so powerful in just about every market. Within the first 3 months already, without even making any adjustments at all to your bid, to bid adjust, to modify your bids or anything, you could get a $20, $30, $40, $50 cost per lead. When with a 10% close rate, that's where your 15-to-1 ROI comes from. When you sell something, that's $3,000 plus or something, at least over $1,000. The cost per lead will be lower based upon the selling price generally, because the market is less competitive for the ad space, just in general. So if you sell something for $1,000, the cost per lead might be $15, whereas if you sell something for $30,000, it might be $50 a lead. So don't be discouraged if what you sell is not super expensive, because they kind of correlate together like that. But 3 examples of where this has worked before was in the funeral planning market. So like you're buying a casket and a burial plot and stuff before you die, so that your family don't have to buy it and I can pick up my own things. It's called funeral planning or death planning. In that case, we had $30 a lead, okay, running on Google and Facebook. If you do it on Google, you do it on Facebook, because both will bring in some volume of leads. If you don't think you can handle it and you need to make sure your sales process works, you can start with one, but both of them almost always work. If one works, the other one will work. So we usually run them together. And the cost per lead is similar between Google and Facebook. It's just the cost per click is just a little different. Don't be thrown off by that, because the conversion rate is different between the two. Facebook converts at a higher rate. The market price per click is generally, whether you're advertising on LinkedIn or wherever, is priced based upon how good the quality of the traffic it gets. So if you're on LinkedIn, cost per click is $5, but that's because the conversion rate's like 5% versus 1%. As a general note, for just a side note about PPC in general. 2, roofing space. I talked thoroughly about roofing, and I gave you that. It was my main example here. We had a $40 cost per lead. Roofs in premium markets, in high income areas, average $15,000. So that's extremely profitable. Selling a $15,000 product and it taking about $400 to sell, that's, you got a 15% or 15-to-1 ROI, or $15 of revenue to $1 of ad spend. That's where those, how you and why these numbers worked out the way that I gave you at the start of the video here. It's not gonna, in terms of the people who hit your landing page, yes, they're only gonna, on Google at least, convert at 0.2 to 0.5%, and 1 to 3% on your landing page from Facebook because you're asking a lot in terms of having to enter in their phone number, your conversion rate can actually be higher than 1 to 3%. That's very conservative on Facebook, but it doesn't take 50 leads to make this work. If you have the sales process the way that I showed you, you can close 1 out of 10. Maybe not on the spot, but if you wait a year for all the leads to mature and you keep following them up and you have a really good process, 1 in 10 are closable. Otherwise, it might be 1 in 20, 1 in 30. And so your goal should be 1 in 10, as I found, because once you got all your ducks lined up the way that they need to be, you can get those kind of conversion rates in terms of the lead close rate. The conversion rate on the landing page, it can be 0.2 to 5%. Just because it's low like that doesn't mean it's not a search campaign. Search campaign, you may be looking for a 30% conversion rate. Display performs completely different. Anyway, and the last example where I've done this is in the custom mailbox space. So basically, high-end decorative mailboxes that are in the 4-figure range, sometimes 5, depending on how crazy you get with it. We were $25 a lead in that space. Again, $25 a lead, that's in the first 3 months of turning the campaign on. So, which we were hitting in month 2 to 3. And these other, $40 a lead for roofing and $30 a lead for funeral planning, these are all were achieved within the first 3 months. Now that cost per lead may not be good enough if what you sell is $500. Let's say you don't have a 4-figure priced product or service here that you're selling. Like I said, technically could work if you sell something for more than $200 to $300 because they usually turn into a lead before they buy to feel comfortable about buying and know that they're dealing with a real company who they can chase down if they need to. If they need, they have problems later on once they got the order, and will they provide good customer service, and so on and so forth. If you run those campaigns for a while, the algorithm, the similar to and lookalike algorithm, if you set up the conversion tag, it will actually start out by giving you people that are similar that come to your site as is. As you start getting leads, it starts to figure out, okay, if they have these traits, but they have this trait, they convert at 10 times the rate if they just had the traits of the normal person that comes to the site. And the cost per lead then, because of that, will start to come down. And it'll take a while for it to come down. You might have to run the ads for a year, but I've seen very often where it'll start out at $30 a lead. You could get it down to, $5 to $10 a lead once you've run it for that period of time. Respectively, I've all the time start out with $30 in that range per lead, and with the banner ad testing, finding you nail the image that goes with it, you could go down to $3 a lead. You could 10x the number of leads that you're getting by getting that ad down, because again, the higher the click-through rate, the lower the cost per click, which means more leads for the same dollar spent. So if you want to help yourself out and you want a higher return, go to town testing that ad and find ads that'll get people's attention. Anything to do with money, as I found, like if you have some money and it's on fire, there's flames on it, it's directly related to fear of loss and fear of losing money, which is the whole point of this content and psychologically how it works. You can find that works a heck of a lot better than just the title itself, like I told you before, and no image at all. Obviously, you've got to have the URL of the site on there, otherwise Google will disapprove the ad. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about in terms of testing the ad. Don't radically change the design. Just work on getting the main image on there to work. From there, test your colors is what I would do in terms of the contrast between the text and the background, making it more readable, or different colors have a different psychological effect on users based upon trust, or get them emotionally more engaged, like a red versus a blue, which is focuses more on trust. You'll find the right thing that works for your market. There's nothing that works for all markets the best way. Sometimes red works, sometimes blue works. Red will get more attention, but will it get trust? Anyway, you get the general idea. You can cut the lead cost in a third from where you're starting out the first 3 months, like every time. It's just a matter of letting the algorithm find you the leads that ultimately, in terms of what generates a lead the best, getting more leads. If you're having a problem at all with lead quality, or in general, you should do this. There's a thing called offline conversion tracking, which you can see. There's a video on this channel and an article on my blog about how to set this up. But when a lead turns into a sale, you can export through that process once it's set up, which is not that difficult to do, and none of your competition is going to probably be doing this. Therefore, this has massive, like double to triple what you're making from the ads. Again, when you get a sale, there's like a serial code that can be collected along with the lead, which the user doesn't see. So when John Smith buys, that serial code will be in your database next to John Smith. You copy it and you put that into Google through their uploads menu, and then right along with what your audience, and you can also obviously, if you do manual bidding, which I recommend, it'll show you the person, what area they were from, what gender they were from, what age they were, and you can start to narrow down the demographics that don't work if your cost per lead is too high. But in general, Google's algorithm, instead of optimizing for what's getting you a cheaper cost per lead, you can optimize for what's getting you a better quality lead on an ongoing basis instead of the cost per lead. The more data you have and the more data Google has, the better a job that you could both do optimizing your ads. So if you really want to go to town with this and just crush it, get your offline sales revenue tracking going to where your data from your CRM or your billing system gets fed into your Google Ads account. And Facebook actually has the same thing, offline revenue tracking, so that the whole system, at the very least, you should be doing it for the best results, to have the most controlled, best results. Otherwise, at least short term, or just let Google or Facebook, and Google and Facebook, to optimize your ads for what's producing quality leads, not just more leads. It'll save you time. You can actually pay your salespeople more because they're dealing with less garbage as one effect of the whole thing. And so you can test your ads and get your revenue data and your lead quality data into your account and optimize on the traffic source side. And that'll be your second main way to improve the ROI of your whole thing, to the point where even if you sell a $300 product or service, you could probably make the economics work to where you're getting a 10-to-1 return or greater on your ad spend. Okay? Anyway, that's the whole thing in a nutshell, or at a very high level. I have a ton of other videos on this channel about other PPC money-making strategies. You can definitely look into those if you want to make more money with PPC. They're very similar to what I give you here today. I have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build PPC campaigns the way that are guaranteed to work, and which we use for our guaranteed service here. If you want information along those lines, you could find it there, or in general as well. If you have any questions about anything I covered today about this don't rip me off, bro offer, leave me a comment down below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel within a day or two's time, personally. And with all that said, hope you enjoyed. I hope to see you on my next video about another great PPC strategy in another day or two that I come out with.